To make this beanie, we really only need a few basic materials to get started. For the yarn, I will be using this number 4 medium weight yarn. This is also classified as a worsted weight fiber. This is going to be the Red Heart Super Saver. I'm going to choose to use 2 different shades because I kind of want to create a little bit of a striped effect, but if you would prefer, you only really need 1 color, and that way you can also make this as a solid color beanie. For the hook, I will be using a 5.5mm crochet hook, and then lastly, of course, we just need a darning needle, some scissors, and then I would also recommend a measuring tape so that you can measure your own head and make this to your perfect size. So yeah, that's really all that we need. Let's go ahead and jump into the tutorial. All right, I'm going to start off here with my green shade, but to begin this beanie, we do need to start with a magic circle. So what I like to do is take a good amount of the yarn and create a little bit of a loop, and then I'll kind of grab onto that loop with my working hand. At this point, I like to crisscross the yarn, so we're creating a little bit of an X here at the center, and then I'm just going to pinch right there so that the yarn doesn't move anywhere. So I have my tail end down here in my hands, and then I have my working yarn up top, and at this point I'm just going to insert my hook into the circle and then pull up that working yarn. So we've pulled up a loop, and then from here I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and this chain of 2 does not count as a stitch. It's simply to help us build a little bit of height at the start of every single row. So at this point, what we want to do is work 8 double crochet all into the magic circle. So I'm going to yarn over and then insert my hook into the circle and pull up a loop. You should have 3 on. From here, I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, and then with 2 on, yarn over and pull through 2 more. So this is technically going to count as our first double crochet. Again, I'm going to yarn over, insert into the magic circle and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then again yarn over, pull through 2. So now we have technically 2 double crochet, and I'm going to go ahead and work 6 more all into the center. So this is going to be 3 and 4. Here is the 5th double crochet, 6, 7, and here is my 8th and final double crochet. So at this point I can go ahead and pull on the short tail to tighten up that center. And now what we want to do at this point is slip stitch into the chain 2 from the very start of the row. But as I'm slip stitching, this is where I want to change out my colors. So what I'm going to do first is insert my hook into that chain of 2. I'm going to drop my current color, and now I'm going to pick up my secondary color. So I'm just kind of looping it right here over onto the hook, just like this. And I'm going to use this color to slip stitch the row shut. So it's a little bit tight here. I'm just going to slip and slip. So that's the end of row 1, and now we can go ahead and move on to row 2. As always, I'm going to chain 2 for the very start of the row, and again, this does not count as a stitch, so we're just going to disregard this. So for row 2, what I want to do is work 2 double crochet into every single stitch. So in row 1 we had 8 double crochet, which means at the end of row 2 we should have 16. We're just doubling it. So I'm going to yarn over and look for the very first double crochet in the row, which is right here. And I'm going to insert my hook into the top 2 loops and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So there's 1. And once more, we're going to go right back into that first stitch and work a second. So again, 2 double crochet into every stitch in the round. Here is 1, and here is 2. Now we're looking at the 3rd double crochet in the row. So again, insert and work 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Just repeat this for the whole round. And then here is the last stitch in the row. So again, I'm just working the 2 double crochet. And once more, we've made it back to the very start of the row. So again, I'm going to slip stitch into my chain of 2, which again is at the very start of the row. I'm going to insert my hook, but remember, we do want to switch back to our first color. So after I've inserted my hook, I'm going to drop that working yarn, and now I can go ahead and switch back to our first color. So I'm going to loop that over my hook and then use this to slip stitch the row shut. So that's the end of row 2, and we can go ahead and start working on row 3. As always, we're going to chain 2. And then here for row 3, what I want to do is work an increase into every second stitch. So I'm going to work 1 double crochet into the first, and then 2 into the second, 1 double crochet into the next, and then 2 into the next. I'm going to yarn over and look for that very first double crochet in the row, which is right here, and work 1 double crochet. And now looking at the second stitch, I'm going to yarn over and work 2 double crochet. So here is my first, and right back in for a second. And then that's going to repeat for the entire row. So starting all over, looking at this first stitch, I'm going to work 1 double. And then looking here at the second, I can work 2. So 1, and then going right back into that same stitch for a second double crochet. And we're just going to repeat this for the whole round. So 1 double, and now 2 double. That's 1, that's 2. Now that I'm starting to come up at the very end of the row, you'll see I have 2 stitches left. So once more, I'm going to work 1 here, and then into the last stitch, I'll work my 2 double. So this is the end of row 3, but as always, I'm going to slip stitch into that chain of 2. Get my hook through. And now that I've inserted into that chain of 2, I'm going to drop my working yarn and switch back to my secondary color. And now I can use that yellow shade to slip stitch the end of my row shut. So this is the very end of row 3, and I just wanted to take a second to note that if you start to notice your project having a little bit of a rounded top, a slight bit of a curve to it, that's completely normal. That's actually how I have kind of created this beanie to be, as I prefer beanies that have a little bit more shape on the top that fit to the rounded nature of your head versus beanies that are completely flat on the top. So yeah, just don't worry if you notice that your work is kind of going a little bit concave. That's completely normal. For row 4, I'm going to start with a chain of 2. And now the pattern for row 4 is to work an increase into every third stitch. So I'll work 1 double, 1 double, and then 2 double. And we'll repeat this for the entire round. So I'm going to yarn over and look for that very first double crochet, insert, and work 1 double, looking at the next stitch, 1 double, and now here for the third stitch, we'll work 2 double. So there's 1, and here is my second double. And we'll repeat this for the entire round. So again, 1, 1, and then 2. Work 1 double, 1 double, and now here at that third stitch in the repeat, I'll work 2 double crochet. If you also take a closer look at this beanie, you'll notice that the increases on every row will be worked into that second stitch. So if we kind of take a look at the row prior, you'll see the 2 double crochet coming out right here. This is where that increase is being worked. Same as the row before, we have the 2 double crochet, and then that increase is always being worked into that second stitch of the increase. So hopefully that kind of helps in case you guys aren't necessarily counting stitches on every row. All you really have to do is kind of take a look at the increases from the row before and work into that second stitch. And now here at that very last stitch, we can work our 2 double crochet. And once more, we're going to slip stitch into the chain of 2. I'm going to drop the working color and switch back to my green colorway. I'm just going to loop it over the hook and slip stitch the row shut. For row 5, we're going to chain our 2. And now the pattern repeat for row 5 is to work an increase into every 4th stitch. So I'll work 1, 1, 1, and then 2 double crochet into the 4th. So here for that very first double crochet in the row, we're going to insert and work our first double. So that's 1. Here is our second double crochet in the row, our 3rd, and now here for the 4th, which again is also where that increases on the row prior, I will work our 2 double crochet. So always make sure that your increases are neatly stacked into the second double crochet in that row. And we can repeat this for the entire round. So 1 double, 2 double, 3 double crochet in a row, and now here at the 4th stitch we'll work our 2. 1, back in for 2, and again it starts all over. At that last stitch I can work my 2, and now here I can go ahead and slip stitch into that chain of 2. So inserting into the chain of 2, dropping the working yarn, and then picking up our secondary color, looping it over the hook, and slip stitching the row shut. All right, so at this point I've worked a total of 5 rows. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to work another row of increases. So for row 6, I'm gonna start with my chain of 2. And as you can imagine, the increase pattern for row 6 is to work the 2 double crochet into every 5th stitch. So whatever row that you are currently increasing on, you want to technically work your increases -1. So here for row 6, I'll work my increase into every 5th stitch. Whereas for row 4, we worked our increase into every 3rd stitch. And row 3, we worked it into every 2nd stitch. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So looking right here for that first double crochet, we're just going to insert and work 1 double. Here is my second double of the row, my 3rd, 4th, and now here at that 5th, we can work that increase. So 1 and 2 double crochet, and repeat this for the entire round. So we're going to work 1, 2, 3 in a row, 4 in a row, and now here at the 5th stitch we'll work our 2 double crochet. And just to check, we can always look at the row prior, and that is where that increase is worked into the second double crochet. And now that I'm here at my very last stitch in the row, I can work my increase. So that's 1 and 2. And as always, I'm going to pick up the chain of 2 and slip stitch the row shut, looping that over the hook, and slip stitching the row shut. So that is the end of row 6. And I'm just going to set down my work here for a second and zoom you guys out because we do want to take a moment to take a few quick measurements. I need to find the circumference of my head, so I'm going to use my measuring tape and wrap this just above my eyebrows. And now that we have the circumference, we actually need to translate this into a diameter measurement. So to make this a little bit easier, I will leave a little chart here on screen so that you can better find your size. I believe I have a little bit more of a smaller sized head. My circumference was about 21 inches, give or take, and 21 inches translated into diameter is about 6.6 inches. Now, using my measuring tape, I decided to stop here again at my 6 rows because I want to double check the total diameter of our hat so far to make sure that I don't exceed this. So measuring edge to edge, I have just about 6.5 inches. And again, because I have about 6.6, I'm choosing to stop right here. If I were to add on another row, I feel like it would be fine, but it also might make the hat just a little bit too big for me. 6 rows in total works out perfectly for me, which means that at this point, I don't need to work any more increases. I can just move into working 1 double crochet into every single stitch for as many rows as I need. As I said, I kind of view myself as an extra small to a small head. So if you have a small or medium, you might want to work a total of 7 rows of increases. And likewise, if you have a large to extra large head, you might want to work a total of 8 rows of increases. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and reattach my hook, and then I can pick up to work the rest of this body. But as I just said, I'm going to stop my increases here at the end of row 6. And now for my head shape row 7, what I'm going to do is work a very simple row of double crochets across. So again, no more increases. Here at the start of row 7, I'm going to chain my 2. And now looking at this very first stitch, I can work 1 double, 1 double, and from here I'll just continue to work 1 double crochet into each stitch in the row. So again, no more increases. We're just working additional length onto the beanie at this point. So we're just finishing up the last few stitches, and now I can slip stitch at the end of my row. But even though I'm not working increases, I'm still going to continue to swap out my colors so that we stick with the stripy colorway. So I'm just going to loop the yellow on and slip stitch the end of my row 7. And now here for my 8th row, I'm going to chain 2. And just like before, I'm going to work 1 double crochet into each stitch in the row. So once more, no more increases. At this point, we're simply going to be adding on additional rows of double crochet until the beanie reaches your preferred length. So I'll continue to work on this, add a few more rows, and then I'll check back in with you to show you what my finished beanie looks like. I just finished working up a good majority of my beanie, and so far this is what it's looking like. For this version, I'm choosing to make this without a brim, so this is more of like a cap style. And for my head size, I've chosen to work up a total of 14 rows, and in total for length, my 14 rows get me to about 7 inches long. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop here because I do plan on adding a little bit of like a shell border here for the very last row. But for those of you that would prefer to have a brim on your beanie, so you want a longer style beanie, I did also work this version that can have a brim. So for this solid color, I worked up a total of 18 rows. And these 18 rows get me to just about 9 inches long. So again, with this version, I'm able to flip up a few of these last rows here so that you have more of this distinctive brim. But to go ahead and show you guys the little shell border stitch, let's go ahead and pick up here at the very end of my last row. So picking up here at the very start of my row, what I'm going to do is chain 1. And now we're going to work with half double crochets. So I'm going to yarn over and skip the first stitch, and I'm going to work 5 half double into the next stitch. So I'm going to pull up that loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So that makes our first half double. Again, I'm going to yarn over and go right back into that same stitch and pull up a loop. And with 3 on, yarn over and pull through all 3. So that makes 2. And I'll repeat this for a total of 5. So here's 4, and here is my 5th half double. And now at this point, I'm going to skip 1 stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch into the next. So I'm just going to insert, pull through, and pull through. So we're kind of just anchoring down the cluster. And then from here, I'm going to yarn over and skip 1 stitch, and then work the 5 half double crochet into the next. So I'm going to insert, pull up, yarn over, pull through all 3, and again. That makes 2, 3, 4, and then here after my 5th half double, I'm going to skip 1 stitch and slip stitch into the next. So insert, pull through, and pull through. And now you can really see those clusters start to take shape here. I just think having a little bit of like edging to the beanie is also really cute. So I just thought it'd be fun to kind of show you guys a few different options to very easily spice up a simple beanie like this. But once more, after that slip stitch, I'm going to yarn over, skip 1 stitch, and then work 5 half double into the next. And now that I've made it back to the start of the row, I just worked my very last cluster, so I have the 5 half double crochet. I'm going to skip this very last stitch, and then right here at the start of the row where I have the chain of 1, I'm going to pick this up, I'm going to insert into that chain of 1, and then I can slip stitch this row shut. So pulling through and pulling through, we're just anchoring down that very last cluster. And at this point, I can go ahead, pull out the yarn, cut my yarn, pull through the tail, and tie off a knot. And now at this point, all that's left is for me to weave in this remaining end. But as you can see, if I turn it around here, this is what our finished beanie is looking like. I think it's absolutely adorable, and altogether she's ready to be worn. Again, this very last row of cluster stitches is completely optional. If you would prefer, you can just leave it off on the basic striped rows. But for those of you that are also looking to add the cluster onto the longer length brim version, my piece of advice for you is to turn your work to the wrong side first before you add your cluster stitches. Keep in mind that we are flipping up this brim, so by flipping it, we're kind of turning our work the wrong side to the outside. So before you start working your clusters, make sure to turn your work inside out, and you'll have the wrong side facing you. And from this point, you can begin working your last row of clusters. And then once that's completed, turn your beanie back to the right side. And then from there, you can flip up your brim. And at that point, you'll have the right side of the cluster stitches facing outwards. So that is my parting piece of advice for you all. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.